Hi everyone. Now we are going to discuss about prevention of diseases or immunoprophylaxis. So the immunoprophylaxis can be defined as the prevention of diseases by immunization technique. So as we know, animals and human beings are constantly exposed to potential dangerous microorganisms, isn't it? So, a host immune mechanism, both innate as well as acquired, have been evolved to give protection against infectious agents. However, occasionally these mechanisms prove inadequate and infection results in the diseases. Apart from drugs and other clinical approaches, one way of preventing the onset of an infectious disease is to potentiate the immune response, both innate and adaptive, that is acquired. So how you are going to do that one? The general enhancement of all types of immune mechanisms is called non-specific immunostimulation, whereas the enhancement of specific adaptive or acquired mechanism is called immunization or vaccination. Okay, the main aim of this immunization is to produce a degree of immunity or resistance sufficient to prevent a clinical attack of the natural infection is going to be the main aim of this immunization. So this immunization thus can be defined as a process by which immunity to a pathogen is elicited. That means it is going to be provoked by vaccination or by the transferred passively by the administration of immunocomponents. That is, passively administration means ready-made antibodies are going to be passively transferred from the donor to the recipient, will also elicit the immunity. So that's how both the process is going to be called as immunization. That means it's a process by which immunity to a pathogen is elicited by vaccination or transferred passively by administration of immune components. Then the vaccination. So the vaccination simply can be defined as a process of administering vaccines. Though these terms of immunization and vaccination are often used interchangeably, but their meanings are different. What is their meanings? Vaccination is the process of administering vaccines, whereas the immunization is a process by which immunity to a pathogen is elicited by vaccination. Okay, so this is what you have to remember about these two. Though we are going to be used these two terms oftenly interchangeable, but still there is a difference between these two. Okay, and thus then what is a vaccine? I told you the vaccination is a process of administering vaccine. So then how can we define a vaccine? It refers to a collection of immunological determinants presented to the immune system which stimulate the immune responses is going to be called as vaccine. Okay, so these are all the terminologies that you are supposed to remember, which will be very useful to understanding this concept of immunization. Immunization is a process by which immunity to a pathogen is elicited by the vaccination. Vaccination means the process of administering the vaccines. So then coming to the immunization, so is a process of rendering an individual resistant to infections is simply defined as immunization. So we can control some of the diseases like smallpox, measles, mumps, diphtheria, poliomyelitis, all these things by having this immunization. The resistance to infection, that means the immunization, can be brought about by two methods. How many methods? Two methods. The first one is the active immunization and the second one is the passive immunization. Active immunization and the second one is the passive immunization. So let's begin with the first one, active immunization. So what is happening in this active immunization? In active immunization, the individual is injected with an antigen to induce immune response against an infection. Whereas coming to the passive immunization, what is happening in the passive immunization means in passive immunization, immune response is going to be produced in a previously non-sensitized animal by the transfer of sensitized cells or serum antibodies from an immune individual. So there we are just transferring the ready-made antibodies, but here we are going to inject an antigen to induce the immune response against an infection is being termed as active immunization. The best example of this active immunization is going to be of a cowpox vaccine is responsible for the complete eradication of our smallpox from humans or human beings. And similarly, this active immunization with vaccines like tetanus and diphtheria and poliomyelitis has made these diseases rare in many countries. Now, the active immunization is going to be of two types, namely natural active immunization, artificial active immunization. What is a natural active immunization? This refers to the development of resistance to infection due to naturally occurring infections. So, if we are getting the immunization when exposure naturally to an antigen and induces an immune response, then such kind of the immunization is called natural active immunization. For example, a person attacked by measles or smallpox develops natural immunity as he recovers from the diseases, and their immunity, that means the immunity that was acquired by such infections, is long lasting, and the person will not contract the same disease for the second time during his life. So this is what we have to remember regarding the natural active immunization. That means the person will not contract the same disease for the second time during his life. Okay, then moving to the second type of active immunization, that is artificial active immunization. So this refers to the development of resistance to infections owing to vaccines. That means we are preparing the body. So that is what the vaccines are. Now coming to the vaccination is the injection of vaccines into the body to produce immunity and to protect against the diseases. And certain diseases like anthrax vaccine, BCG vaccine, Salk vaccine. So these are all going to be used to control what development of resistance to these kind of infections. For example, take the anthrax vaccine. Here, these are going to be of used against a disease called as anthrax, and then the BCG vaccine, that is the full form of BCG is Bacillus, Calmette, and Guarini, and this is going to be giving the immunization against the TB, that is tuberculosis. Okay, then in the same manner, Salk vaccine and Sabin vaccine, these two are mainly given uh, to prevent against the polio disease, and the TAB vaccine is going to be mainly used in the prophylaxis of what we call it as salmonella typhi, that is typhoid fever. Then DPT, we know that DPT is a triple vaccine, isn't it? So which contains of a diphtheria toxin, pertussis vaccine, and tetanus toxin. So again, as these three diseases, we are having a triple vaccine. So like this, we are having an artificial active immunization is being developed by giving these type of vaccines. Okay, so this is all about the active immunization. Then moving to the passive immunization. The passive immunization is the development of resistance to infection in a non-immune individual by the administration of sensitized lymphocytes or serum antibodies. So simply we can define this as the passive immunization is the process of administration of specific antibodies or antisera or immunocompetent cells passively into the body is called as passive immunization. You can write this definition, or you can simply write it as a process of administration of specific antibodies or antiserum or immunocompetent cells passively into the body is going to be called as passive immunization. And this passive immunization is again going to be of two types. So what are those two types means? One is a natural passive immunization and the second one is going to be the artificial passive immunization. So let's see this first one, natural passive immunization. So here this refers to the immunity, that is development of the resistance to an infection in a non-immune individual. So how it is going to occur? Let's say naturally. So no involvement of anyone. It occurs naturally. How it is going to be? The immunity transfer from mother to the child passively is known as natural passive immunization. So we know that before birth, the antibodies of mother passes into the blood of newborn through the placenta, and this those antibodies are nothing but the IgG antibodies. So these type of antibodies, the immunity, everything you can go through the immunology topic that where I have discussed in detail about them. Okay, have a look about all those videos also. So only IgG antibodies are transferred through the placenta, since the other types of antibodies cannot pass through the placenta. And after the birth, antibodies are passively transferred to the baby through colostrum. What is a colostrum? The first milk produced by the mother after the birth of the offspring is going to be called as colostrum. And the breastfed babies can absorb the antibodies directly from the intestine. So these antibodies are providing the baby the immunity for till the 3 months. However, the baby will protected up to 5 months against various infection by maternal antibodies and whatever the antibodies that were received by mother. Okay, so this is how the antibodies are passively transferred from the mother to the child or the baby are going to be called as natural passive immunization. Then moving to the second type of immunization, that is artificial passive immunization. So here in the artificial passive immunization, the artificial transfer of antibodies and sensitized lymphocytes from an immunized donor to an non-immune recipient, that is they are going to be of immunized donor, that means antibodies were produced in that person and they were transferred to the non-immune recipient which is going to take them, is going to be called as artificial passive immunization. So naturally it is not occurring. We are involved in the transfer of these antibodies, ready-made antibodies from the donor to the recipient. That's why we are calling this as artificial passive immunization. Okay, this artificial passive immunization is used in the treatment of diseases like tetanus, diphtheria, gas gangrene, snake bite, and even the immune deficiency states also. The antibodies transferred in artificial immunity, that is artificial passive immunity, may be homologous antibodies or heterologous antibodies. What is meant by homologous antibodies? When the antibodies are transferred between two individuals of the same species, that is man to man, such type of the antibodies are called homologous antibodies. What are heterologous antibodies? When antibodies of one species of animal are transferred to another species, that is from horse to man or vice versa, from man to horse, the antibodies are going to be called as heterologous antibodies. So this is all about the artificial passive immunity, where the antibodies are going to be administered from the donor to recipient, is going to be called as artificial passive immunization. So that's how the immunization altogether is going to be two types. One is a passive immunization and second one is the active immunization. The active immunization is again of two types, that is natural and artificial, and the passive one is also going to be of natural and artificial. Okay, then coming to the time of immunization, there will be a particular time for immunization process. We cannot administrate the vaccine whenever we want. Okay, so when it is going to be off? So immunization is going to be carried out in two ways, namely routine immunization, and the second one is going to be the immunization under special circumstances. Let's see what is a routine immunization timing. So it is a fixed and regular way of doing immunization. Okay, so that's why this is called as routine immunization. The children are protected from diseases like polio, whooping cough, smallpox, all these diseases by subjected to routine immunization. And the WHO, that is World Health Organization, in the year 1917 has given a schedule, that is a schedule of immunization for children. Okay, that schedule you can have this at a glance, which I have given for Indian schedule. Okay, so national immunization schedule for the pregnant women as well as the infants and the children. So have a glance of all these things at what time they are going to be given. For example, the TT booster 1, booster 2 and the booster are going to be given for a pregnant woman. Okay, and coming to the infants, we are having the BCG at birth or as early as possible till 1 year of age we are going to be given, and these are all the route by which they are going to be administered and the quantity. Then coming to the hepatitis B, same at birth or as early as possible within the 24 hours we are supposed to give it. Then OPV, that is a polio vaccines, that is O1, and you're having the 2, third. So this is how you are going to have the doses in different stages. The first dose will be given at birth or as early as possible within the 15 days. Then oral polio vaccine 1 at 6th week of birth. Then you're having a IPV is going to be 6th week, then again OPV at 10th week, okay, then OPV 3 at 14th week. So this is how you are going to have different doses. So when the child is about 16 to 24 months, again you are having the OPV booster. So like this, different vaccines were described by the WHO, and the national is going to follow them to give the vaccines to the children to prevent for against all these diseases. Okay, so let's see the second one, immunization under special circumstances. So one is regularly we are having a schedule where we are following it. That those are all going to come as a routine immunization. And we are also going to have the immunization under special conditions. Suppose when there are sudden outbreaks of certain diseases, they are prevented by massive immunization or mass immunization in the affected areas. For example, during flood, there is a possibility for the outbreak of cholera. So in such areas, cholera vaccines were given. Similarly, the vaccinations for plague, typhoid fever, influenza, yellow fever, etc. are also given in certain occasions. Then, in the same manner, when mass camps are conducted, the participants are given vaccinations against the infectious diseases. And not only that, people traveling by air, that is the international travelers, by air, sea and land to all parts of the world, commercial, cultural and recreational purposes. So these international travelers are usually immunized against diseases like smallpox, yellow fever, cholera and plague. So these are all the certain special circumstances where we are getting this immunization. Okay, so this is all about the time of immunization that we are going to take the vaccines. Then coming to the adverse reaction of immunization. Yes, we have to discuss the negative aspects of this immunization also. If you are not knowing all these things, maybe it may lead to the fatal or some sort of a hazardous nature of this immunization will be negligible. So let's take this one. No immune procedure is entirely free from the risk of adverse reaction. So whatever the immunization reactions, they are not going to be of having any escapism. Okay, so the following are, these are all the adverse reactions which may occur during the immunization process. The first one, as a result of inoculation, local reactions such as pain, redness, tenderness, and development of small nodule at the site of injection may occur. Then, after inoculation, general reactions like fever, malaise, headache, etc. may also occur. When improperly sterilized syringes and needles are used, like what happens, then obviously you're going to have the infections like staphylococcus, streptococcus, etc. may also occur. And administration of anti-sera may sometimes cause serum sickness and anaphylactic shock. That means we'll get the hypersensitivity reactions too with the administration of immunization. And this smallpox vaccine may also sometimes cause encephalitis and encephalopathy. So these are the certain adverse reactions because of immunization. Why? Because as I told you that no immune procedure is entirely free or free from the risk of adverse reactions. So this is all about the immunization that we have discussed. Okay, the types of immunization, the time of immunization, and the adverse or hazardous of immunization. Okay, I hope so you understood well. Thank you.